Hey, what's up guys, Bajheera here. So, in the comments of a lot of the recent videos, I've been seeing questions about why are you always in defensive stance? Or are you intentionally in defensive stance? I thought battle stance was the stance for warriors. And so I'm sort of going to dedicate this video to a discussion of that topic. It's all going to be in the context of 2v2 for right now, just because that's the footage I have to work with, since I did a lot of, like I said in the last video, I did a lot of 2s over on US and then on EU, and these are my EU 2s games. But these games I still think would be good examples of when defensive stance really matters, and maybe when you can sort of hop into other stances for fun. So, in the beginning of this match, I'm just going to talk about some of the basics of defensive stance. It gives you a 25% damage reduction, and it generates 1 point of rage every 3 seconds for you. Battle stance just generates rage on hit, and Berserker Stance generates a little bit of rage by dealing damage and a little bit of rage by taking damage. And the reason why I feel like Berserker Stance isn't really even in the picture is because if you're taking damage, you want to be in defensive stance, and if you're not taking damage and you want to be in a stance that's not defensive stance, you might as well be in battle to generate as much rage as possible from dealing damage. But then what ends up happening is battle stance leaves you, and this is just the basics, battle stance leaves you vulnerable to getting switched to in a stun or something like that. And if you're not in a defensive stance, when you get stunned and switched to, you can easily actually just go from 100% to dead, especially if you don't have a trinket or something. So what ends up happening for me, at least, is I will generally spend most of the fight in defensive stance. And the reason why that is because I really don't feel like I have that much of a rage problem when I'm in defensive stance, and it prevents me from getting switched to. And that's in 3s. In 2s, I feel like you do have a little bit more leeway, just because things don't happen so fast. You're not usually gonna just get globaled in battle stance before you're able to switch out. At least in like a healer DPS situation like this. So what's going on right now, and I guess what I'm sort of trying to show with these clips, is that this might be one of those times where you could go into battle stance when you're just peeling all match. This warrior really wants to tunnel my monk here, and I'm just doing my best to keep the warrior off of him. But what you can see here is that maybe their warrior had gotten a little too aggressive. Maybe he was in battle stance, and because he sure was taking a lot of damage when I stunned him, and that makes me think that he might be a little too comfortable about being in battle stance at this point. And even if he wasn't in battle stance, imagine how much damage he would have taken if he was in that one stun. So a lot of what happens right now, at least in arena, is the healers try to keep their DPS up with mana efficient heals. And like if they're not CC'd, if nothing's really happening, if there's not a lot of bursts going out, then they can keep their DPS up with mana efficient heals. And what'll happen is if they do get CC'd and you're not in defensive stance, you're going to take a lot of damage, and they're going to have to come out of that CC and spend a lot of mana and a lot of, maybe even cooldowns on trying to get your health back up to where it was. Whereas if you were in defensive stance when your healer got CC'd, the damage on you wouldn't be quite as intense, and they may not even have to pop cooldowns or use mana inefficient heals. What's going to happen right now with this warrior is I'm in defensive stance still. The warrior overextends to chase my monk a little bit. I'm going to root him behind the pillar. As soon as the paladin comes around, I'm going to fear the paladin, and the warrior's going to be in a really bad spot right here. I missed my shockwave, thanks EU lag. It's probably all my own fault. But I'm going to switch into battle stance right here just for hopes and dreams, and I get enough rage from my mortal strike to heroic strike him anyway. So battle stance really didn't do anything for me at all that match. It sort of prevented me from taking, or defensive stance sort of prevented me from taking extra damage and generated plenty of rage. Now, this is one of those situations where you probably don't have as much leeway in terms of being in battle or defensive. Now keep in mind, these are 2s, and this is lower MMR, so you're not gonna, this isn't gonna be the most effective of every comp we ever fight ever. So just keep in mind, it's still pretty scary though. I get about down to 50% health and like instantly. Sitting in defensive stance here, getting plenty of CC on me and my healer. So although we did get trinkets and a Will of the Forsaken out of the mage and the Shadow Priest at this point, so we weathered their initial burst just fine. Really only took about 50% of my health's worth of damage. My healer was able to eat all the CC that they were able to pour on him, and we came out of all that just fine. And now we get to turn the fight around a little bit. I'm starting to get DR'd on a lot of things like polymorph. I'm able to reflect that polymorph. The mage is going to sit in it. I'm going to heroic leap across the map. Got a few stacks of heroic strike, a few stacks of taste for blood built up. So I'm going to intervene in my banner to get out of that route, crush his image on accident, and then kill the Shadow Priest. Might have to eat a polymorph here, but it's no big deal because we won the game. But right there against double DPS, defense stance is invaluable. You can have you and your healer endure a lot of CC and not take as much damage as you would have if you were sitting in battle stance. And I mean, as you can see, there's not really a huge rage problem. And before I go on, I don't want you guys to think that this is like, oh man, this is like Bajheera innovation right here. No, most warriors are using defensive stance this way right now. This is sort of the standard stance for warriors at this point. I just want to take note of how dead I would have been just now if I wasn't in D stance fighting this rogue mage. Definitely would have been dead. I think I had about 25% health right there, and boy, if I was in battle stance there, I would have gotten globaled. But since I wasn't, I was, you know, I was sitting in D stance, very tanky, still able to do all my damage because our main attack abilities are free. So the only thing that I'm really doing, and another comment I saw, God, look how low I was, holy crap, 5,000 health. I'm going to try to get out of here. I still have my trinket, but I'm going to heroic leap across the behind the pillar and then intervene behind the pillar once again. LOSing all the damage, all the CC, letting second wind bring me back up to a reasonable amount of health before I go back in and pop some cooldowns on these guys. I see my monk's able to heal me right now, so I'm going to try to get a little bit of burst on the mage. Do get him to ice block. The rogue's still on me. Shockwave them both. Still in D stance, even during my cooldowns, because what happens right there if I get kidneyed without a trinket, I would have been dead. I'm still almost dead. Look at this. I go back down to below like 15k health here. Definitely some scary stuff. I'm gonna get my sword and shield out, even though I lose resilience with my sword and shield out. But since I was in defensive stance at that point, I was able to survive. And I don't, you know, like I'm saying, this isn't something that I'm only coming up with just now. I am sharing it with you because I see these questions in the comments, and I definitely want to share my thoughts and what I'm doing with you guys, especially if you're interested, which you seem to be. So, but yeah, if you're a warrior right now, I definitely recommend playing primarily in defensive stance. That doesn't mean that you can't switch out, like in some of these games where we're fighting a healer DPS, or even in threes, when you're completely by yourself and you want to just get ridiculous burst off and you feel like your healer can keep you up if everybody's got cooldowns, and you're not really worried about just getting swapped to in battle stance and dying, then that's something that you can do. But be very careful with your micro. Be be mindful of going back into defensive stance when things start to get ugly, because if you're not in defensive stance at the wrong time, you will be dead. Because warriors are pretty tanky with our defensive stance and with our second wind when we get low. And a lot of warriors I'm seeing are actually deciding to stack resilience at this point. I still like PvP power because I like to make PvP videos or hit people for 400k. So, like, you know, it evens out. You have to play with your playstyle. I'm able to LOS this polymorph, and then he tries to go for a polymorph on me again, and I'm going to stun that one, and that's going to allow me to get a kill on the rogue. So, what we did again with defensive stance is we're able to weather their burst. Oh my gosh, we got so close so many times though. So close to dying. But we were able to weather their burst twice, and then follow them after they try to get a re-stealth and get a kill. So, but yeah, defensive stance, it's nothing new. Early on in Mist of Pandaria, and a lot of warriors were experimenting with this sort of thing. We found that, you know, if all your main abilities are free, you might as well sit in the stance that gives you the biggest damage reduction, since it's not really going to hurt your damage that much. I've also seen the comment a lot about whether or not I use Slam, and I honestly am not using Slam that much at this point. I'm really using a lot of Heroic Striking because I have Hindering Strikes, so it also applies my slow. It saves me a global, and since Slam is not off or since it is on the global cooldown, it makes it a little bit more clunky to use. So if anybody's worried about not having enough rage or not being able to burst while in defensive stance, I wanted to show you this game real fast just to kind of allay your fears. Don't be afraid to stack up to 100 rage. I mean, that's something that I've been doing. Stack up to 100 rage, get their paladin into full fear, shockwave this warrior, and light him the fuck up. I mean, like, don't worry about it, guys. Colossus Smash, Mortal Strike. Oh my god, look at that. I couldn't even help but just dance on him a little bit after that. I don't know, I'm not supposed to, but man, that felt good, because we had some pretty long games against these guys, and just to be able to blow them up like that was pretty fun. So anyway, I just want to make a quick video discussing defensive stance a little bit. Hopefully this gave you a few insights. I know this probably wasn't the best description possible, but the basics are, with battle stance, you're susceptible to swaps, you're going to get a little bit more rage. With defensive stance, you're going to be well able to deal the damage that you want to deal while protecting yourself versus the burst that is Mist of Pandaria. Alright, anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any more questions, feel free to shoot them my way, because I love making little videos to help you guys understand little aspects of the game as best as I can. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace!